Hi. Obviously, traditionals come in all different shapes and sizes. Um, well, you look at my collection, you think they're all the same size, but that's only because I'm in the UK, so they all have to be sub 3 inches, and with, you know, the odd exception. I don't really want to go too much smaller than that. I've got the odd one that just makes me smile. But we've got various designs, some of them really old, like the Sodbuster design and the Barlow that go back since the beginning of time. Some slightly more modern in a way. But anyway, take those out of the way. One traditional pattern that's been around a long time is made by most of the knife manufacturers, Case, Rough Rider, Buck. I think GC even do one as well, but or have done one at one time or another. It's one of those things. This is the canoe. Why is it called a canoe? Because it looks like a canoe. It's got that kind of upturned end at each end. Now, whether canoe is a term more recently adopted for a knife this shape, or whether they were designed to look like a canoe in the first place, I don't know. But they look like a canoe, so they're called a canoe. But the reason that they're that shape is not so that they can look like a canoe. I think it is design meets function. And the reason is, one of the problems that a lot of traditional knives have, and have a look at a couple here now, it doesn't matter which one you've got, is that the end of the back of the blade, whether it's a Case, Stockman, or a Barlow, or any of these, you have this little bit of the back of the blade that sticks up. Now that can be relatively sharp. It's not too sharp on most of these, but actually it can be. The PK70, that's actually quite a defined edge. Now you get round that by having the canoe shape, because as it kicks up there, it just kicks up and it covers that tail of the knife, so that's quite useful. Now, what makes the Buck knife really stand out amongst my collection is that it's one of the few that are double-ended. The only other one I've got, I think, is in fact that Stockman from Case. I'm pretty sure every other knife I've got nowadays, I've had some in the past, but every knife I've got nowadays is just a jack. They're open from one end. Though I notice you do have double-ended jacks now, but I think it's relatively easy to open. It's a hollow ground blade and a satin finish. So actually, all in all, I quite like that. That's quite a nice thing for me. It came pretty blooming sharp. It's got this composite diamond wood, I think it's called, scale, which effectively is plywood, let's face it. But they're quite comfortable in the hand. They produce a reasonably nice finish. Nickel silver bolsters, traditional pin design. And the funny thing is, of course, you don't gain any extra pins or anything to have blades at each end, so it's quite a useful thing. But what you do have, which I don't know if it's usual, unusual, you've got 2 back springs, one for each blade. Now you can share back springs. The Stockman actually is a good example, although it's got 2 back springs, but it's got 3 blades. So 2 of the blades, the pen and the sheepfoot, share the same back spring. But here you've got 2 discrete back springs. That gives the knife a little bit more size in the hand, but it gives you, as I say, 2 hollow ground blades. Now you could call them drop points, you could call them spear points. I think I would probably go for spear point, but I would be happy to take either as an appropriate term for these. On the blades it says Buck and the pattern number, and on the other blade it says China. And that tells you why this one costs 30 quid and why a case one costs 60 quid. What it doesn't explain to you is why a Rough Rider one costs 15. I haven't got a Rough Rider one, but I'm going to buy one purely so I can do a comparison with this and see how it pans out. Now, in terms of size, we have a Swiss Army knife here. Compared with a small blade, compared with a big blade, slightly broader, slightly shorter. Oops, that's not showing you very much, is it? Slightly broader, Buck is slightly broader, but slightly shorter. So they're both, obviously, both the blades are well within 3 inches. Both are non-locking. Both work in the UK. It's actually quite a nice knife. The fact that it's made in China brings the price down. I don't think it necessarily brings the quality down, whatever people might like to say. It's as good a quality as most. I'm slightly concerned there's a little bit of gapping there, which you can probably see. Certainly no worse than you would get elsewhere. I mean, you wouldn't get that from GEC, granted, but you would get it from a German knife or a British knife in most cases. So yeah, nice enough knife. Quite like it actually. I'm going to get I'll get the Rough Rider one purely so I can do a comparison, and maybe one day if I'm feeling flush I might get a case one, and we can do a full comparison. But anyway, there we are. That's the Buck Canoe, sub 3 inch, UK legal, pocket folding knife. Thank you very much. Bye.